point, I would call everything status quo.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Commstock channel. I'm Marlon Bowling, and as always, I appreciate you joining us today. I want to remind you, before we get started on today's podcast here, I want to remind you to like these videos and share these videos with others. Thanks to you, we continue to be one of the fastest growing ag podcasts out there nationwide. And it's all thanks to your help. Make sure you subscribe too. You do that by clicking on that little bell icon right down below this window. And that way we'll notify you every time a new update comes out. Well, today I'm pleased to be welcoming aboard Randy Fritsche of Commstock Investments. And I want to get Randy's perspective on what's going on with the growing season this year, because Randy's out in the Western Corn Belt. Don't hear too much from the Western Corn Belt. We talked about how terrific conditions are in the 3I states, and corn harvest is already starting in the deep, deep South. I covered that earlier this past week. But in the Western Corn Belt, things are a little bit different. Maybe it's not a perfect season out there. Randy, what do you say to people that say, oh my gosh, we're going to have 300 plus bushel corn in the 3I states? How about you?
Well, I'm sure in the 3I states that sounds really wonderful, but out in this area, that's not going to happen.
What's the problem this year, Randy? I
Well,
mean, what kind of conditions have you had out there?
to begin with, we had extremely good conditions. I mean, had some early spring rains. We were able to get the crops off, and had a little problem with like getting herbicides on. But overall, we haven't had, really have not had a lot of big heavy rains. So uh, we were off to a great start. But unfortunately, after that, then here comes June, and we started getting some heat. And so, we've been 95 to 105 for several weeks. And so it's taken its toll on our crops. And amazingly, the irrigated still looks real good, but the dryland is in a lot of trouble. So, and this pertains to a lot of counties out in this south central Nebraska area. So, um, we definitely have trouble here.
Now, that's interesting, Randy, because you don't get too much press coverage about that, probably because not too many people live out there, relatively speaking. But how large of a geographic area do you think that encompasses where you haven't had enough rainfall this year?
Oh, well, because you take here, then you can go on west down into northwest Kansas and northeast Colorado and eastern Colorado, put it that way. And so you're talking a pretty good sized area whenever you start considering the panhandle in Nebraska also. Um, and so, you know, we're talking several hundred miles. But we're not a big area. We're not like, it's not like everything is planted in corn and beans. We're diversified with cattle. So uh, it's not like that we get inundated with everything that to get east of us. So we're not as big of an area as you know. And as far as the trade goes, I mean, we've always been considered as Nebraska's considered irrigated, and they don't worry about the outlying areas, and which is very true. I would say that probably the biggest what we have here is has to deal with basis. If a lot of grain is raised, and our basis will fall sharply. If it's not, why then our base is probably stronger than maybe it is east of us. But you get east of us, and then the irrigation picks up a lot. So, um, you know, right now we're just everything has been going backwards. So, uh, I guess time will tell. A good rain would still bring things on, but that's a ways away yet.
So the thing that makes you so unique in that part of the country there is you're right in the heart of cattle feeding country. I mean, your end users are like right there, right? And then of course you have ethanol too around there.
That's absolutely true. There's one, two, probably five ethanol plants on top of all the cattle feeding. I mean, we've got cattle feeding. There's 100,000 lot just right north of us, about 15 miles, and another 20,000 in two different lots within 25 miles of us. So a lot of cattle feeding, and with the ethanol plants, well, that creates a lot of cattle feed for people to be able to use for the feedlots and for their cow calf operations. So it works pretty well.
I would imagine that makes pretty good demand for DDGs as well, right?
That's exactly right. And so there's with the demand of DDGs, the price of DDGs is actually pretty high in this area because it's they use it a lot. So everything gets used, and so it works great between the ethanol plants and the feedlots to use this corn up in this area.
So, give me an idea of how far along the corn is and how much of the corn in that area is actually irrigated. What kind of percentage are we looking at?
In this particular area, I would say that 40 to 50% is irrigated. Now you go east of us about 30, 40 miles, and then now you're talking 80% irrigated. So we're just, kind of on the edge of, we're called on the edge of the sand hills. So as you go east, definitely more irrigation. As you go west, then there's a lot of pivots, but it's still, that 30, 40, 50% versus irrigated.
I'm going to guess the irrigated acres are probably looking okay. I mean, it's kind of like a guaranteed crop unless you hail out or something, but the dryland acres probably not going to amount to much. Is that accurate?
That's pretty accurate. It's made its ear. If we could get some moisture, why we could still raise some good dryland corn. But we're just a ways from that. We just need some good rains, and it hasn't happened. As far as the irrigated goes, the irrigated looks really well, and I attribute that to the fact that even though it's been 95 to 105, normally when we get heat like that, well, you get several days of 30, 40 mile an hour south winds, and that's what really hurts this irrigated corn. But we haven't had that, so even though it's been pretty hot and dry, the the irrigated still looks really well.
Interesting stuff. Now, you also grow a crop that I used to grow a lot of when I was in my farming days, I think. Grain sorghum. Do you still have that out there?
Yes, we do. So again, which it's we'll see how it goes. But right now, a lot of the grain sorghum is in trouble. So, which is amazing that the sorghum is actually worse than the corn at this point. So, but again, if the thing with milo is it hangs on quite a while. So if you could get some good rain, well, it'll still come on and make some good milo. The milo is there's milo heading, but if any place where it's really where it's stressed, it's not. So it's been burning up and either sitting there or burning up or something. But like I said, if we get some moisture, why it would still go ahead and hit and make some milo. But uh, we had some moisture here, like a half inch to 60 hundredths here last 12 hours. But again, that's not enough unless we could get some more. So it does help it to hang on and hopefully continue to grow here pretty soon. So we're still there. We're still there, but
On the corn, I'm assuming you're past the pollination stage now.
we are past the pollination stage. So um, again, some of it was not able to pollinate. It just sat there. But it's the same thing. We still have that opportunity to raise a decent crop if we can get some good rains. But we just got to have that rain.
Is there little value left in that corn, even if it can't really produce an ear for maybe silage for the feedlots out there?
There is. I mean, that's the thing about it this year that at least like we got the growth. So if people need to, they can put the corn up for silage and get a lot of feed for the cattle. So uh, that's kind of where it's at. It's like there may not be much corn in it, but there would be still plenty of feed value.
Well, I know you work with a lot of cattle producers out in that part of the country. Well, what's their attitude like now with after that big drop that we had in cattle prices over the past week. Are they getting a little nervous about trying to do hedging right now?
Not really. At this point, it's a lot of, yeah, as you look at the board is one thing, as you look at the cash, it's another. So as far as the sale barn go, the prices really have not dropped off much. So we're still getting really good prices for these cattle, really. And the amazing thing to me is to sit here and watch you know, any cull cows go to town. I mean, usually on a dry year, why you might get usually a big discount. You might get $400, $500, $600 for a cow. Well, old cows are still bringing $2,000 right now. So the the cattle industry is still doing. You know, it has not felt any drop in the feeder cattle at this point.
So if the demand is still that firm, are you hearing from any cattlemen out there that they're going to have any success in rebuilding the herd next year? Or are we just kicking that can down the road for another year now?
I would say kicking the can down the road. You do not hear anything about people wanting to keep a bunch of heifers to replace older cows or expand the herd or try to build the herd up. But there's really no talk about that. So at this point, I would call everything status quo. Remain where we are, and I think part of that is whatever they're losing in the corn, in the grain market, why they're able to make up for it with the cattle. So this area is really not being hurt at this point.
How about basis on corn? You mentioned that it can be extremely volatile. Where is it right now?
Well, right now, as we talk, why it might be at 20 cents below, but if you could go to an ethanol plant where they're usually 30, 40 over. So again, the basis is staying strong at this point.
Interesting stuff. Randy, I appreciate you taking a little time to talk with us, and I'm glad I had a chance to introduce you to our audience out here. So, and you're located in Maywood, Nebraska, right? What county
Maywood,
is
Nebraska, yep. Halfway between McCook and North Platte, if that might tell some people something. Buffalo Bill country.
I used to consider that, I guess I would call that semi-arid out there in that area. So if you have irrigation, that's pretty valuable out there.
Absolutely.
Anyway, good stuff. Thank you, Randy. I appreciate that very much and wish you all the best. I hope to talk to you again soon. Randy Fritsche of Commstock Investments. That'll do it for this episode. Thanks again for tuning in. For producer Brianne Hendrickson, I'm Marlon Bowling. We'll catch you next time right here on the Commstock channel. Thanks for joining us on our Commstock YouTube channel. Don't forget you can also find us on Facebook and TikTok as well. Futures trading involves risk. The risk of loss in trading futures and or options is substantial, and each investor and or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results.